Okay. This is Charity Otte. Today is February 20th, 2012. I'm interviewing Steve Knowles. The interview is taking place at Simpkins Hall in Macomb, Illinois, at Western Illinois University. And this interview is part of the Oral History Project for English 482, Life Writing, Spring 2012. So, let's get started and as we're discussing, we could walk around a little bit, and then, as you
I don't know if you want to just get a brief background first or afterwards.
Sure.
It might be easier to show you the places.
Yeah.
And as I look at them now, how some have changed a lot, and how some have really not changed. What strikes me the most is how much smaller everything looks than it did when I was a student.
Yeah.
The buildings, the walls, the doorways, everything just seems a little smaller, but when you were a first grader in these halls, it looked, huge, like a museum.
Yeah.
So,
I bet. So, as you're saying that you started here then when you were in kindergarten, that's what you're saying?
I would have started, I believe, I was born in 1949, so I would have started probably the fall of 54.
Okay.
And I have a late birthday in October, and those things didn't matter back then. I was always the youngest in my class. So I started kindergarten at age 4, and we had half-day kindergarten. And kindergarten, first grade, were all on the ground floor, so that the students didn't have to negotiate too many stairs except for physical education in the gym. And the lunchroom was on the main floor, and the music room, the art room, and the nurse's office if you got sick. And each floor had a special aura and charisma to it, For the second floor was second, third, and fourth, and the principal's office, which you never forget where that was. And the third floor was fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth. And the top floor were the 4 senior high. That's where lockers were, and the majority of the senior high classes, English, history, science, etc., were all on that floor, as well as the senior high library. And of course, teachers' offices up there too. But as you got older, you kept moving up a level in the building until high school was on the top floor. And of course, downstairs for lunch, downstairs for music, downstairs for physical education. But and I can remember flying up and down these stairs. I mean, things I would not try to do now. But I mean, jumping over the banister railings right down to the next level. And we always, in our immaturity, would to see how fast we could get to lunch and how fast we could get to physical education class and things a lot like that. That kind of slowed down by the time you were a junior, senior, because you had to act a little more responsible. But I can remember racing up and down these stairs many, many, many times in the years I was here.
So that was allowed then in the school? You could run?
No. I mean, we didn't run in the hallway, but we would really fly down the steps, and if you got caught, the teacher would stop you and make you go back up and walk down.
Did it happen often?
To some guys it did. I think everybody got caught more than once. Everybody had to stop, go back up, and walk. And it really amounted to who was lucky and who had the best eyes to see a teacher coming or hear a teacher talking and slow down and let their buddies get caught racing down the stairs. But no, they didn't allow it, and it didn't result in any major punishments or anything, but we had to stop and walk back up to the top landing and walk down. And So that would happen sometimes.
Yeah.
Not always were you in a hurry to get down the stairs, but when you were, you just hoped you didn't get caught.
So was there a lot of contact between the teachers and students then? Like what was the relationship?
The relationship was very much teacher separation, student. They were good teachers, very good teachers. Most of them had a master's degree. Many of them had a doctorate. That's very unusual in a high school education setting to have your, especially at your high school level classes, those teachers having a doctorate. But most of them in English, math, science, some of our history professors, they held doctorates. And some of them did some additional work through the university education departments, but and when the school finally closed, a lot of them were able to move right over into the elementary education departments to continue teaching. But we were very fortunate to have a very highly skilled faculty, and that's not to diminish any other high school in town or the state or the county, but it was a university lab school, and the teachers were here to prepare us students for continuing our education, but they were also here to assist the university students in their observations and part-time student teaching and full-time student teaching, which is why we were here and why we were called the lab school. We were the working lab for teachers. And when I first started, kindergarten and the elementary grades, this was Western Illinois State Teachers College. And it was a college, not a university, and it was primarily for teacher training, teacher preparation. And it certainly expanded so much in the last several years, and that's very positive, and those are the things you need to do. But the lab school, the training school, this is what this building was called. To us it was Western High. It did not become Simpkins until after it closed as a high school building, and those students in 1968 moved down to Horban Hall. Well, Mr. Horban was the longtime principal here, okay? And so, but he retired when this building closed as Western High School after the graduating class of 1968. He retired then because I'm sure it was just, he was old enough to retire, and I think it was just going to be a different world and a different situation and a different environment for him.
And also I think it was the coach, right?
Our football coach retired too.
He retired at the same time.
My brother, who's 1 year younger than I, was in that last graduating class of 1968, and he was on the football team the fall of '67. That was Coach Harry Sockler's last Western High team. They were unscored on all year. It was an 8-game schedule back then. They didn't have the high school playoffs. If they did, Western High would have gone through and won the small school division handily, no doubt in my mind, because I'm still sort of associated with football. And as a Class 1 school based on enrollment, we had outstanding athletic teams, and especially in football. He has, still to this day, one of the highest winning percentages of all Illinois high school football coaches ever. And he passed away a few years ago at age 99, just short of his 100th birthday. And I was very fortunate that I got to see him again out here at Western. He was honored by the foundation, I believe, because he had made a bequest in his will for money to be left to Western. And so they honored him, and I was able to attend that dinner and see him, and it was nice. And for 99, he was a pretty sharp guy still for 99 years old. He was a very rough and tough, no monkey business individual. I mean, it was black and white. The lines were drawn, and you followed the rules. The only reason you missed practice was because of a funeral, your own. Otherwise, and I remember him saying that when I was a freshman. And so, anyway, that led to a lot of success. My varsity seasons as a junior and senior, we were undefeated. And then the next year, my brother's senior year, they were undefeated and, of course, unscored on. So he finished his career the last 3 years, 24-0, and I believe his record was 114, 12, and 2 in probably 15 to 20 years of coaching here. So very, very successful, very influential on the young men that went to school here, as was Mr. Horban. Those two were pretty good friends. And Mr. Horban had no children. Coach Sockler had no sons, but yet he had hundreds, that played for him. So anyway, those are certainly, when I think of the high school, of course I think of my sports career here, and I was involved in music too, and they just had a great music program. I played the saxophone in the band, sang in the chorus, and I just enjoyed music. I still do to this day, and we had a very, very good program. Started individual lessons and instruction in probably 5th grade, and so by the time you got to high school, you could have 3 or 4 years, depending on when you started learning an instrument of experience. We had a string program and actually had an orchestra. Very unique here. Of course, it was a state-supported high school, so we had state money helping fund the operation of the school, certainly during my years, the 50s and 60s. Unlike today, of course, the way the state started financially, but it just made everything a pretty unique experience.
So what else were you involved in besides music and sports?
Always music through, junior high and high school. Like I said, I played the saxophone in the band and sang in the chorus. I was on the student council in high school. All 4 years I was on the student council. And I believe my junior and senior years I was treasurer. But football, basketball, baseball took up a lot of your time after school. And then I was, happy to be on the student council, and then playing in band and singing in chorus, and practicing for contests, practicing for performances. That took a lot of time. And then, of course, doing homework and studying. In high school, I did manage to have a girlfriend each year, always a different one, for whatever reason. So, girls, sports, music, cars, typical high school life.
I guess I framed that kind of badly, though, because I done a little research on you, and I did see that you were in student council, and if I got this correctly, that you were, what was this, for homecoming your senior year? Did you, announce speakers at the homecoming? You were like a representative?
I was I gave a program. Yes, I was in charge of homecoming my senior year.
Okay.
And so I had to arrange speakers. And so, of course, we always had Mr. Horban, our principal, give a short speech. Of course, Coach Sockler always had to talk. And he would pretty much, was like, well, we're going to play whomever tonight, Carthage, and we're going to kill them. We're going to win. And he was a very self-assured individual. And the thing is, we won. When we walked on the field, we knew we were going to win. The other team knew we were going to win. It was still fun to play. But Coach Sockler, and then you always had to have the University Athletic Director, Ray Hansen. Hansen Field is named after him, okay? He was a very, very famous individual here in the history of Western Illinois University. And they called him the Rock Hansen. And as long as I, through high school, went to high school homecoming assemblies, he spoke. And so when I was in charge of the homecoming assembly our senior year, the first person, of course, I thought of was him. And then I invited a man that I knew through my father, who was not as old as my dad, but he had been a great athlete here, and I think he had graduated 10 years earlier, and so I invited him to speak as the 10th year anniversary of his senior class, and his name was Dick Boone. So then I had to invite one of the dean at the university who happened to have sons going to school here, but it was customary to invite one of the deans to speak to the dean that controlled whatever department of the various deans over there that controlled the operation of Western High. So Dean Abel spoke, and I remember telling everyone that I wanted him to come back and talk because the year before he had told the funniest elephant joke I'd ever heard. And again, back 40 plus years ago, elephant jokes were kind of a popular form of jokes. So, gosh, Dean Abel, former player, Dick Boone, Rock Hansen, Mr. Horban, and Coach, of course, Coach Sockler. So I had to contact them, arrange it. And I wasn't real used to public speaking like that in front of my peers and my other school teachers, and but you know, a lot of my friends could not have done that, and it was pretty scary for me. But looking back, I'm glad I did it. It was fun, and I think I won an Elk scholarship my senior year too, that they awarded. Also, I applied for I applied because one of my favorite teachers made me apply for an award called the United Nations Pilgrimage for Youth, sponsored by the Odd Fellows Club. Long story short, I wrote a paper, had a couple of personal interviews, and had to provide some recommendations, some letters of recommendation, but I won that. And so in the summer of 1966, I went on a 2-week, about a 15-day bus trip to the east and stopped along the way at all of the historical places, starting in Gettysburg, Philadelphia, Independence Hall, went to Washington, D.C., went to Arlington. This is in 1966, so we went to the John F. Kennedy's grave and saw the eternal flame, because he had died in 63. Just went around Washington, D.C., and then spent 5 days in New York City, and each day we went to the United Nations to just be there, observe, listen, see. Got to go to Radio City Music Hall. We got to see a play on Broadway. We were heavily chaperoned. We met other busloads of kids there. And then on the way back, we went through New England and went to Concord and Cambridge and Boston and Plymouth Rock and through Niagara Falls, and eventually worked our way home. I think it was longer than 15 days, but it was, I'm glad I did it. I wasn't real excited at the time to apply and go through it, but anyway, I mean, it was a memorable experience for a 16-year-old at the time.
Who was the teacher who was your, one of your favorites?
Helen Buckley, Miss Buckley.
Okay.
And she was very influential on me. I had her as an English teacher my sophomore, junior and senior years. And she was absolutely a no-nonsense lady, and an excellent teacher, and sometimes, I don't know if you're going into education, but teachers can find certain students that they favor, and I happen to be one of the boys that she did, to my very good fortune, you know. And so, anyway, but the main thing was you had to go to class and you had to listen and read and study and comprehend and test well. And I got A's, but I had to work for them from her. She was a very good teacher. She's one of those that was so good that when Western High closed, she continued on and taught elementary methods courses here at the university. Helen Buckley, a very, one thing that you'll notice if we have a chance to walk around and in my comments is I had a lot of teachers named Miss whatever. That was just the way it was in the 50s. Many women chose education as their career field, and that was their family. I guess, you know, I really don't know any different other than starting in kindergarten. I had many teachers that were, of course, all female teachers until 5th grade. And it was, that's me.
Bracing up with that.
It was just the way the times were then. But Miss Buckley, even through my high school career, she was one of those you did not want to cross. But she was an excellent teacher. I learned a lot from her besides English, you know, and I ran into her periodically through the years, you know, after I graduated. She was actually the sorority advisor for a sorority of a girl that I dated in college, and kind of ran into her again there, and of course was always on good behavior when I was around her. She was one of those that wherever you saw her, in school or out of school, you shaped up.
Can you think of a particular story or like an example?
Well, I guess we hit it off when I was a sophomore, because back in those days we were on quarters. We didn't have two 18-week sessions of school. We had 3 12-week sessions of school. And school never started till after Labor Day. And then, of course, we didn't get out till after Memorial Day either. But we were on quarters. First quarter of my sophomore year, I got a B. And I thought I deserved an A. So as soon as I got my report card, I stormed into her office after school, because report cards were handed out last period. And I just kind of barged in and I said, I want to talk to you about this B. And she saw that I was upset, and she says, young man, you march right back out that door, and you come back in here when you're more self-controlled. So, you know, put my tail between my legs and chin on my chest and shuffled out of the room and went and sat in the classroom next door. And then, I don't know if she came and got me or if I kind of went back in. But she explained to me, you know, you're close to having an A in this class, but, you know, here's how I judge and evaluate, blah, blah. And that was that. So from that point on, I just told myself, I'm not going to go in there and ask her why I didn't get an A. I'm going to get it. And she made sure, because, you know, she would ask me questions and make me get up in front of the class and talk about the story that we just read or whatever. You know, it's kind of like, okay, mister, if you think you deserve A's, you show us how smart you are.
Yeah.
But we also, I think she was perhaps our class sponsor, and having her for 3 consecutive years and behaving and minding, and, you know, I didn't get in trouble in the classroom or anything like that ever. She saw that I enjoyed English language arts, you know, I enjoyed it and enjoyed reading, and so she just made sure that I didn't slough off, and I did not want to disappoint her and have her put in a situation where, boy, Steve's in between an A and a B this quarter. I don't know, but he's a good kid and all that. I like him. He's my pet, so I'll give him that A. I wanted to earn my A's.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's I remember going in. I'd never done that to a teacher, but I thought I deserved an A. I got a B. I went in. She pretty much put me in my place, and from thereafter, not only did I have respect for her to start with, but I had total respect for her thereafter for the rest of my life, her life. So that's certainly something I remember from her. But my buddies picked up on the fact that I became sort of her pet.
Yeah.
And so I got teased about that a little bit, subtly in class and certainly out of class, but I didn't mind. I would much rather be teacher's pet for her than on her other list or any other teacher's list, So anyway, a very good teacher, one that I wish my children could have had, my grandchildren could have. That's how much I thought of her. We need teachers like her, and there are many like her, just not enough, in my opinion.
So do you have any, you mentioned your classmates just teasing you, but do you have any stories about your classmates you want to share, or what?
Oh, golly. Well, I guess in a broad sense, the thing that I remember the most is that the boys could be a little bit mean and teasy, and it seemed like we could, everybody had a nickname. Everybody had a nickname. If an incident or an event happened, that was awkward and weird and goofy and whatever, somehow we would associate that with the kid. They would have a nickname. Oh my. We had some of them, I'm not sure I should share with you, but we had kids, we called them fly bait and torso and septic tank and let me see, nude, Rocky, Whitey, of course his last name was Whitehead. There were some other nicknames that we don't want to use. And then sometimes the boys would come up with nicknames for girls, and I don't know, for whatever reason, the boys were pretty clever. Oh my. They picked up on stuff and would come up with a nickname for someone pretty fast. So many nicknames, gosh, and like I said, some I really can't share, and the others, I'm trying to think of course, back then, most of us boys had the traditional boy names: Mike, Steve, John, David, Jim, Alan, Chris, etc. Girls too: Susan, Mary, Jane, Deborah, Diane, Vicki. But we were baby boomer kids. Certainly a few years ahead of me and a few years after me. We were the baby boomer generation, and not only were our lives traditional and our names traditional, but the education here was very traditional. And of course, when I graduated, I went to the university and ended up teaching for 7 years before I went into the insurance business, and I taught language arts. And I was a very traditional, conservative, basic reading and writing kind of a teacher. No arithmetic because I was terrible in math, but anyway, that carried over into my short teaching career of 7 years. and then I've been in insurance for about 33. So, but things that happened to me here, experiences educationally, socially, were, formative for me, and as they are all kids. My daughter and son graduated from Macomb High School, and as will, I suppose, some of my grandchildren, and that is a fine school. It is a public school, but it is in a state university town, and I just think that has a tremendous positive influence. Their Scholastic Bowl teams do fantastic all the time, and they have a great music program and a very broad sports program and all of that. The kids who live in this area or whose parents work or teach here that might have been Western High attendees if it was still open. We never know, since it closed in '73.
So, what was it like when you were going to Western High, and what were the relations like with those students who went to the Macomb High School?
It was great going here. It was not a rich kid's school or a privileged kid's school or anything like that. The enrollment was controlled because of the fact that we were a lab school, and we had to have the enrollment controlled by the number of student teachers that would come over, that were available. That ratio and relationship had to be worked out. For the most part, the high school 9 through 12 enrollment was around 200, approximately 50 students per class, give or take, either way, right around 200 to 210 students, and it was kept that way. If your parents wanted to send you to Western High, I believe there was somewhat of a application process. If your parents did not work for the university, if your parents worked for the university, you could come to school here. You didn't have to apply and get permission. You could come to school here, but not all those kids did. And there also were many boys and girls who came here whose parents did not work for the university, like me and my brother. So it was a controlled enrollment, and it had nothing to do with wealth or passing intelligence tests or anything like that. We had some pretty blue-collar individuals here, for the time, not college-bound, not college prep individuals at all. They went on into the, working world right out of high school, and certainly nothing wrong with that. They just were not interested in going to college, and you knew it by going to high school with them.
Yeah.
There was always just a little bit of friction between Macomb and Western High. They did not play each other in football, but in the state playoff series, sometimes we were forced to play in basketball and baseball, and that was fine. That was never a problem. We used to have a county basketball tournament, so we'd play each other in that. For the most part, I think most people got along. Many of the Western students lived in this northwest quadrant, which now, unfortunately, in my opinion, has become a student rental section of town. And that's fine if the properties are kept up. Anyway, that's a whole nother subject. But my brother and I did not live in the university neighborhood. We lived over a little bit south and east of the town square, in the 300 block of East Jefferson. So we were closer to a public school, Logan Grade School, than the lab school, but we rode our bikes and got rides in the winter when the weather was bad. We had probably more friends in the public schools than a lot of our other Western High classmates did. We played summer baseball. We lived in a neighborhood populated mostly with public school kids. So we'd hang out at the grocery store together, go down to the ball field and play pickup games. We played summer league baseball and got to know so many of those kids that way. And we went to the public swimming pool a lot, my brother and I. So we knew all of the public school boys and girls. We all lived in the same town. Mm-hmm. We just went to different, when school started, we went to different schools. Mm-hmm. And some of my best friends were and still are from Macomb High School. Mm-hmm. And of course, there were kids that I went to school with from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade here. And, many of them have moved away. Some of them might be in the area. But a lot of the Macomb High people might be as good or close a friend today as my former Western High students, classmates were. But that's life. Yeah. You make friends with whoever you want to make friends with, and that you kind of run in the same groups for whatever reason. There was not distinct hatred or anything. I think the community did a good job to just explain, if you want to go to Western High, you can check it out. But Macomb High was the public school system, mm-hmm. and just like most towns this size back then. That's where you went to school unless your parents worked at the university or you lived close enough you could almost walk to school. We had no busing, though, to get you to Western. None. Mm-hmm. You walked, rode your bike, or your parents dropped you off. Mm-hmm. Mostly right out here in the front, south entrance. But the little pond out here that was called, it still is called Lake Ruth. Mm-hmm. It was fenced off when we were students for safety reasons. It was all fenced off. And I believe it was named Ruth for the daughter of a former faculty member, perhaps president or a dean, 80 years ago or so, something like that. Mm-hmm. It had a connection to the university faculty or something. Mm-hmm. So,
going back to another question though, how is it that you came to the lab school then, since you're...
my father attended the lab school. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we were kind of a legacy like the guy in Animal House, If your parents went, I guess you could go too. My dad graduated from here, like 1939 or 40. Mm-hmm. But he lived out in the country, north of town, and went to country schools until it was time to start high school. And then he could either come in to Macomb High or come in to the academy, another name mm-hmm. for this place, the academy. And so I think he had a good friend in town that he hung out with that came here, so this is where mm-hmm. he went to school. And gosh, I don't know how he got into town all the time. In fact, when it was the academy, I'm not sure that he even got a chance to go to school in this building. Do you know where the University Art Gallery is? Mm-hmm. Over here? Yeah. That was Western High Academy. Mm-hmm. It was, I'm not sure if there was a grade school there at all, but it was mm-hmm. the four-year high school. I think they used some of the classrooms at Sherman Hall mm-hmm. too. I don't know where grade school kids would have gone back in that day, unless they all went to the public schools until, I believe this building was built around 38 or 39, somewhere in there. And the gymnasium about 10, 12 years after that, which is now the Kofax Recital Hall. And I attend performances there on occasion, and it's very odd to be in my old gymnasium and sitting in chairs and being entertained.
Yeah.
It's just different, but that's progress.
Yeah. Would you like to walk around a little
Sure,
bit?
if you have the time to.
Oh yeah, I have plenty of time,
Okay.
so.
Well, as you can tell,
But you get a chance to do that if you want to.
I'm just going to carry my coat because I'm warm in here.
Yeah.
I was walking around, and it was... I'll show you this to you quickly. Don't laugh, because senior year, here I am. Yikes. That's all I can say.
Oh. No.
Let's see. Of my class, this girl has passed. She's got dementia. He died in '69 in a car wreck. The homecoming king. He passed just recently. She passed breast cancer. That's 2 girls with breast cancer that have passed. She passed the breast cancer. She's gone.
So you would have graduated then in May of...
Actually, June of '67.
June of '67.
Okay. Some of these kids were very, very, very smart, very bright. And a lot of the kids here went on to U of I, and especially the girls. The girls are always smarter and, more mature and so forth.
So have you been in contact with, how have you been in contact with different
What you need
alumni?
is, since we're closed, don't exist anymore, every summer, the last weekend in June, Macomb has what's called the Heritage Days to celebrate the heritage of, this is an old town.
Yeah.
So we have a all-Western High reunion the Friday night of Heritage Days every year, and we've been doing that for about 20 years. So we sort of have an automatic class reunion every year. Of course, living here, I always go and see people that you see every year, maybe every other year. If their parents still live here, they like to come back. Or just people you haven't seen in a long, long, long time.
Do a lot of alumni come back for that?
Yes. There's probably, that Friday night party, there's probably 200 people.
Oh, wow.
And some of them are spouses. But, again, this tile block wall stuff that's unchanged. The floors are a little bit, but down here is where it all started.
Have you looked inside the classrooms a little bit?
Yes. It's really something.
Yeah.
There used to be tricycles in here.
Oh, really?
This was my first grade room.
Okay.
Miss Bagley.
Okay. Now this is room 3.
This was first grade, Miss Bagley. This was the nurse's office. So, and back in the older days, our grade school kids, our parents, if you were a first grader or a kindergartner, your parents would drop you off right out here in this circle drive because it was convenient. Drop the kids off and head out and let somebody else come in. And then if you came the other first grade on the other end of the building, their parents would drop them off down there. But this was first grade. This was the nurse's office. And this door and this next door This was the kindergarten, and there was morning and afternoon. I went to the morning kindergarten. It was just half day. So this was kindergarten, but you can see some of the architecture, like the wooden trim up high.
Yeah.
The windows, and they got very and all that. This was Miss Burke. Notice the Miss theme.
Yeah.
This was the back door into the music room.
Okay. So is the woodwork all kind of the same then in the...
Some of it is.
Some of it?
These doors. This is
Quite good model.
You can see the tile. And I think there's a stairway there that goes up. There used to be practice rooms for music, soundproof. This is where the band practiced.
Okay.
This was the band room.
So you spent a lot of...
And then there was a doorway back out of there. Yeah, I spent a lot of time here from 6th grade on practicing. That was the band room. This was a second gymnasium. This was the lunchroom. Okay. This was our lunchroom. And there were baskets. I'm a former student reliving old memories of this being the lunchroom 50 years ago. That was lunchroom and a backup gym.
Okay.
They had the big gym and then the little kids. That was a lot of bombardment was played there. And this was the kitchen.
Okay.
This is where the, but it was just a kitchen because that was, that was food preparation for everything. This was first grade, the other first grade. We had 2 first grade teachers, Miss Shannick. So that was the other first grade classroom.
So then, just for reference, those room 20. So now we're walking towards the west end.
This was the art storeroom. This was the art room.
Okay.
And there was a sink, and of course storage. It smelled like paint and construction paper and paste and glue. But that was the art room, and we of course back in that day we had art from first grade on. From first through 4th grade, the art teacher came to the classroom. And then 5th grade, we were big enough to walk down here for art, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. Mandatory art. It was just part of the curriculum. And then in high school, it was an elective. So, but spent a lot of time in there trying to learn how to run scissors. This was the faculty lounge.
The student lounge, so
okay.
kind of.
It had a little kitchenette. I believe there's a fireplace in there on the west wall. It was also...
It's open.
And this was the kitchen. There was, it was a tile floor leading into the art storage room, which is where the 2 art teachers' offices were. But in 7th and 8th grade only, we came down here in the wintertime at noon hour. Somebody would play 45 records, and you could dance. Of course, the boys would never fast dance, but if it was a slow dance, you'd wait around maybe for a girl to ask you to dance. So it was the social room. The social room.
Did you like to dance?
No.
No?
I was scared of girls. And I didn't, of course, everybody could do statue, hang, slow dance, you know.
Uh-huh.
But, so this floor was, like I said, first grade, kindergarten, art, music, lunchroom.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So what was your favorite subject?
Probably the language arts.
Mm-hmm.
I also liked history and earth science and geography.
Mm-hmm.
I liked biology, but I was not very good in math. And it was pretty accelerated to do math back then.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're on the second floor. This was the guidance counselor's offices, and this was the principal's office.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And Dr. Horban was also a chemistry instructor,
yes, he was.
right?
Yes.
Did you have him?
No.
For him? Okay.
No. I'm going to ask if I can.
Okay.
You would come in.
Hi, how are you?
I'm just going through a little nostalgia here as a former lab school student.
Okay, great.
This was Mr. Horban's office right here.
Mm-hmm.
You did not want to go through that doorway.
Yeah.
But the school secretary was here,
Out here, okay.
Donna Barrett. And you come down here and buy your lunch tickets
Oh,
and stuff like that.
uh-huh.
And you might poke your head in and say, "Good morning, Mr. Horban." And of course in high school when you played sports, it was, "Well, golly, it was a good game last week. You guys sure look good," and all that. And whatever. You just didn't want to be called in. But anyway, that was his office. This was the secretary's office, guidance counselor, and I think audio-visual were across the way there.
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry for the interruption.
No, that's okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So were you called into the principal's office?
Not very often.
No?
Not very often. One time one of my best buddies and I, we got in kind of a little shoving match, and one of the teachers was just so surprised that two good boys like that escorted. I mean, they just walked us down here, and we had to sit with Mr. Horban, and we had to play the game like we were so scared and terrified and so sorry. And on the way out, we were kind of laughing and joking and buddies again. But I did get called in there once. I don't think my brother can say the same thing. I think he was called in there more than once. He was a little more feisty than I was about stuff, but he might have spent a little more time in Mr. Horban's office. But anyway, I don't want to tell too many stories on that. This was my fourth grade classroom.
Okay.
And basically, this was the teacher's office.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had a secondary classroom for slower readers,
Mm-hmm.
would separate during reading. Slower math would separate during math. And so we had two teachers. Let's see here, report. This was Miss Hipple and Miss Tiao. Miss Tiao was Hawaiian and mean.
Oh, it's interesting that she was here from. Do you know how she got here from?
It was one of these experimental
Yeah.
transfer things. I believe this was the grade school library.
Mm-hmm.
First through six had their own library. First through eight had their own library. But these two doors, this was another auxiliary classroom for fourth grade.
Mm-hmm.
And then a big classroom, and everybody had a desk. And one of the teachers had an office here. Head teacher had an office there, Miss Hipple. But anyway, that was fourth. We're kind of going backwards on this floor.
So were the libraries very
Oh
big?
my.
What were they like?
I would say they were very well stocked with what we needed, you know. And of course, the grade school librarian was Miss Evans, and the high school librarian was Miss Mills. But they were very good. Miss Evans was very old, it seemed like, when I was there. And, you know, you had to be quiet in the library. I think she talked in a whisper her whole life. It's one of the things I remember about her: little wire-rimmed glasses, white hair, and talked in a whisper. This would have been my third grade. Miss Nail. No, she was Miss Scott. And Miss Scott did get married later on. She married a guy whose wife had passed away, but Miss Scott and Mrs. Kowal. Mrs. Kowal had children that went to school here. She was a great teacher, a very nice lady. She passed a couple of years ago, but she was very well liked and a good teacher. So Miss Scott, who became Mrs. Nail at an older age, though, too, probably in her 40s when she married.
So would that have been when you were going to school here when she, or?
I had her as Miss Scott.
Okay.
These are we are right above the band room, music room. This is where we used to have to come up and practice singing, or where we took a lot of our individual music instrument lessons, because the rooms were soundproof, and there were glass windows so you could look down. Way back when, before the gymnasium was built there, this was the gymnasium. So the lunchroom and the music room were the gymnasium, and so this was actually a balcony where people would watch basketball. That was way before my time, though.
Yeah.
But there's little walkways and little stairways all over this building.
I've also heard that there's a tunnel that connects between here and Sherman. Did you ever get to go in it?
We did. They would have us run down there for conditioning in the wintertime, but we were not allowed to go all the way to Sherman Hall, because before the Union was built, that's where the university student lounge was, off limits to us.
Oh, okay.
This is just the second door to the third grade, and those rooms had, you know, a secondary classroom here, a secondary classroom on the other end, the teacher's office there when you first came in, and then in the middle area, all of the middle area was
might be locked.
Yeah. So anyway, this was third grade. This was second grade. And this was Miss Donnelly and Mrs. Stifler. So Mrs. Stifler I had as a second grade teacher, and then I ended up having her as a 7th, 8th, and 9th grade English teacher. Fine woman, still living, one of the best teachers I ever had. Just a very good teacher. I mean, when you went into her class and sat down, you were taught. And she was a very good teacher. And strange enough, 1967 was my last year in the building. 66, 67. And then in I graduated in 68. In the fall of 68, this was opened up as Simpkins, the English building. I'm back in my second grade room taking literature courses.
Oh. I bet.
It worked. Excuse me. Yes. All classrooms. I'm just kind of reliving my Western High student experience and doing an interview with an English student here. This was my second grade classroom.
Oh my goodness, really?
Yes. And
I love thinking of this as a former classroom.
well, you can see the doorway there. That was a secondary classroom. As I've told Charity here, most second, third, and fourth grade here had two, I called them auxiliary classrooms, for when it was time for reading. There was slower reading, went to that room, and fast readers stayed here. Same way with math, slow math. And, or if there was those that took, well, in second grade we wouldn't have had Spanish, but on the upper floors. But anyway, it was, that doorway just took us into another smaller classroom. But this was second grade, and then when I attended the university, I had like courses with Dr. Lundvall, drama, masterpieces in here, which was pretty strange. To be a high school student here, and 2 years later, it's a university classroom.
Right. Funny.
It was, well, that's kind of why we're having this interview. And I apologize for the interruption.
Oh, no worries.
It was,
Theater graduate student author.
okay.
You made it not look like it. Make yourself at home.
Well, it was, you know, basically the windows are newer, but the windows were in the same place. I don't know about the built-in drawers back there. I can't tell if those are new or if they...
I feel like they're totally old.
Yeah, I think those were there. In fact, those were our drawers where we kept our, crayons and whatnot. And,
Where do you do it here?
Me? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, look
look
around.
at this door.
Thank you.
I'm sure that's original.
Mm-hmm.
It doubled as a blackboard, and of course this was the main blackboard too.
Mm-hmm.
But this was second grade, Miss Donnelly and Mrs. Stifler.
Cool. It's actually a really nice room. You know, you have the sunlight coming in the morning.
All the rooms were, thank you.
Oh, yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
Were pretty, all the rooms were pretty special. Now, I think, second grade, I think it's the next, floor. It's kind of built the same way, and there's like an extra room.
Mm-hmm.
These are probably closets. Yeah, those are just closets. And office space. Those were, well, that was the auxiliary classroom to second grade, but it had a doorway into it too. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
we did have the elevators here,
Mm-hmm.
and the bathrooms were...
Did you get to ride the elevators? Did you ever take
not
them?
unless we were with a teacher, helping
Oh,
the teacher
okay.
out, we were not allowed to ride the elevators. But, I stayed in pretty good shape, walking and running up the stairs.
Yeah, I bet.
But this is one of these mysterious doorways that goes, it's probably welded shut, that went down into that music practice room area.
Yeah.
And that's where they stored the marching band uniforms and instruments and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
This would be, 5th, 6th, 7th, maybe.
So what kind of student would you have, described yourself as being?
Above average. Followed, obeyed the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Being younger, always being younger one in the class. With an October birthday, school started and you hadn't had the next birthday yet. So, especially in grade school, junior high, that 6, 7, 8, 9-month difference in age was noticeable. In 9 months, a 9, 10-year-old boy could mature noticeably in 9 months, but I was 9 months behind, until school got out. So anyway, this was 5th grade. That was the Spanish teacher. We had Spanish here. We started Spanish in 5th grade. So I had like 7 years of Spanish,
Wow.
mostly in 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, freshman and junior. I guess that's 6 years. But that was the Spanish teacher's office, and she might have doubled up with somebody else, Mrs. Castle.
Mm-hmm.
But 5th grade, that was the faculty men's bathroom. You kick your butt out of there. This was 5th, and this is where we had men, Mr. Christopherson and Mr. Bernard. And it was like cool, because 5th grade, men teachers finally got to go down, get a locker, wear a t-shirt and shorts for gym class, you know, instead of have the grade school teacher come up to the classroom, get you as a 4th grade class, and take you down to the gym or else outside to the playground. And so 5th grade was a magic year. Men teachers got to go to physical education class on your own, get a locker, dress out. So when we started music lessons with instruments and Spanish, and so
Good year. Were there any other foreign languages that were taught?
there was Latin,
Okay.
but no German or French. But there was Latin and Spanish. This was the back door into the stage, and now we'd moved from 5th. This would be 6th grade. This would be classroom. This would be teacher's office, 2 teachers. Again, Miss Hoeing, Miss Flynn. Great teachers. No nonsense. I would say there was no teacher here that could be walked over, was a pushover, or anything. I'm not sure that anybody was ever really thrown out of Western. They probably got some stern talking tos or got sent to the principal or things of that nature, but kids didn't get kicked out because they wanted to go to school. Those were teachers' offices. Miss Sollers, and the people that taught typing, business econ, they were there. Simpkins Theater was simply the little theater. It's where we had assemblies. That's where I spoke for homecoming. We had our homecoming program. We had our plays. We had a good drama. We had good drama here. And so the plays, student assemblies, when you'd have your class meetings, and the freshman class would meet with your student officers and your advisors and so forth and so on, especially with juniors planning the prom and that whatnot. The class meetings were held here, and let's see, if we had a speaker of some sort, for whatever reason, would be in there. Also, in the wintertime, 1st through, I don't know, maybe 1st, might have been just this floor, 5th, 6th, they showed movies. And of course you never could get through a movie, so it'd take you a week to get through it, but that's where we saw, oh my, Robin Hood, you know, with Errol Flynn, and where are we now? 5th grade, 6th grade. Okay, this would have been 7th grade, which was self-contained. Again, the auxiliary classroom, slow reading, slow math, main classroom for 7th. I believe this was the library. This was this was the junior, this was our grade school library, not down the floor. Grade school kids would be walked up here. And of course, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, it was, you know, a pretty important resource the older you got. And then those double doors went right into the theater. But this was the grade school library. And it's, you know, pretty good sized for a grade
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was the grade school library. This was 7th grade. And 7th grade wasn't, like I said, it was a 7th grade classroom. Our teacher taught us English in here, language arts. We got to go upstairs, since we were 7th graders now. We got to go upstairs to the math room for math. His 7th grade history. She probably taught it, but she didn't teach math. Of course, we left for music and Spanish and gym class and those things. I know that we went upstairs for math. Science, 7th grade science. Gosh, I have to think about that. But this area was 7th grade, and then the classroom on the end was 8th grade. And it was also high school biology. So you took biology when you were a sophomore. So this was about the only time you came from the top floor down a floor was for biology in here. And that was usually, they coordinated that so that the 8th graders had a class out of here.
Yeah.
So we probably went to math, and we'd go upstairs to the math room. But this was 8th grade. Those were the offices for the 2 8th grade teachers in. We had Mr. Kellogg, who became Dr. Kellogg. He might have had his doctorate when I'm here. I know he's now Dr. Kellogg, still living. And he was our 8th grade science teacher and our high school biology teacher. And so he probably had 2 sections of 8th grade science and 2 sections of sophomore biology, and then he might have had 1 more high school science class to teach. But this was, I believe this was special reading, or this was a specialty teacher that was here. This was 8th grade classroom. Again, on each end were the auxiliary smaller classrooms. Actually, this one, since it was a science area, was it was set up as a lab, with water and Bunsen burners and test tubes and all that stuff. But that was their offices and work areas. But that was basically the classroom there. So this floor was 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. Self-contained classrooms, except by 7th and 8th grade, you got to leave to go to math. But here, in 8th grade, actually, we left for English and math, and perhaps earth science.
So you said that there are about like 50 kids or so in each class?
Yes.
Then? And so did you...
Most average class sizes were 25.
Okay.
And
so the students that you started out with, like in kindergarten, like, did you actually stay with most of them then, all the way through?
And then the 2 first grades. First grade was all day. Of course, it had to be. But on that first floor, I was down on the west end, first grade on the east end, and then everybody was together by 2nd grade.
Okay.
We kind of knew who the other first grade kids were in Miss Shannick's class, but I suppose they wanted kids to get a good start in first grade. So important. And so they, I'm guessing that's why they had 2 first grade teachers to run approximately 25 students, 20 to 25 per class. And it might have also been because of space. There just wasn't a classroom big enough to put everybody together the way it was on the 2nd and 3rd floors, where you had classrooms, and then on each end you had those extra smaller classrooms for specialty work and stuff. Well, let's see. This was the home economics room,
Okay.
a term we don't use anymore. I think it's, I don't know what it's called.
Yeah.
The old home ec, fashion merchandising.
Mhm.
It's where the girls learn to sew and, sewing, cooking, those kinds of things. It was an elective, but that was home economics.
Mhm.
This was an English classroom and speech and things like that. And this was Miss Buckley's room.
Okay.
Okay. So I had 3 years here.
It's now 3:25.
Yeah. Sophomore, junior, senior year there. I think I had, might have come up here in 8th grade for English with Mrs. Stifler. But it was sort of a combination classroom.
Mhm.
And this was all part of the, I'm trying to think, the home economics.
Mhm.
I didn't go into that room very much. Didn't have
Yeah.
reason to go in there, but I certainly was in these two, especially that room.
Yeah.
That corner room was Miss Buckley's English class. This room was probably math, I
Mhm.
think, rings a bell. And actually, I think most of those kind of rooms would have 2 doors.
Mhm.
This was sort of a combination room. History, Spanish, civics. I can remember having here various different classes.
Mhm.
And so, pretty sure that was where we went for high school Spanish, civics, rooms that didn't have a teacher's office. They were just the chairs and a chalkboard and a desk for a teacher.
Mhm.
This was the high school library.
Okay.
I'm not sure what it is now.
I think it's the TA offices.
Actually,
And graduate assistant.
the high school library is over here,
Mhm.
but you had to go up the stairs to get to it. This was our study hall.
Study hall.
That was study hall. And it was also a place for like after school dances,
Mhm.
but it was study hall. And there was almost a study hall for high school only. Junior high kids stayed in their own rooms, but there was almost a study hall there, one period a day, all day long, because of the electives outside of your core, math, science, reading, history. Once you had those out of the way, your junior, senior year, it was additional electives, whatnot. And those that weren't in band, there were people that had 2 study halls a day. So this would have been, I believe this was where we taught American history and world history were taught in here.
3:15.
And I would say, this is the history room, because I remember this glass bookcase being right there.
Mm-hmm.
And we did have the, that was a bulletin board. The blackboards look almost original.
Yeah.
Almost original. You can see the heating units, but in some of the rooms I looked at a little while ago, they still had radiator heat. Of course, the university is on steam heat.
Mm-hmm.
And we had radiator heat. You'd hear it knocking in the winter. Always had the film screen. I'm guessing back in the day the ceilings were made out of asbestos tile.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the ceilings were. A lot of blackboard space, because this was, I'm pretty sure this was the history room.
Mm-hmm.
And it came as a classroom. The lockers, of course. Mine was down there. I really can't remember the number or the combination, but it was down that way. But everybody had a locker.
Did you have the same lock? Like, did it change year by year?
No,
or did you...
once you got a locker as a freshman, that was your locker.
That was yours, okay.
This is probably an offices for some of these teachers where there were nothing but classrooms, had to have a shared office space. And then either that or the next one, but one of these was sort of the geography or science room, both of which I took as high school courses and had good teachers. Mr. Alexander, earth science, I was very interested in that, and world geography, very interested in that. And then, like Latin, I used it when it was empty, or speech, I think speech. My senior year, our speech teacher was a guy named Mike Genovese, who is now a professional actor and who I have seen in film and on TV.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
That's
that's
kind of
really,
neat. Yeah.
that's cool.
Let's see. Again, this was all senior high area. This was the high school science room.
Okay.
This was the chemistry. This is where chemistry and probably physics were taught.
Really?
And so this would have been teachers' offices, bathroom, but again, in there on each end, and that's what that door goes to, probably for fire safety, was that door was there, the auxiliary smaller classrooms. But this would have been set up with chemistry lab equipment and all of that stuff. So that was that, but I'm thinking 2 years later, I'm up here taking
Yeah.
a different course. But for whatever reason, the boys' bathrooms are always on this side of the building, and the girls down there.
Yeah, it
This
hasn't
is just
changed.
stairs up into the, I'll take a public peek up in there.
Yeah.
We used to have a Coke machine up here that never worked. It was always a big student council project to be the one who got that going. This was
Nobody
went up
ever
to the
did?
roof. This went up to the roof. And there would be, they had some science equipment up there that would gauge wind speed, rain, whatnot. You know. There might have been some towers and antennas for TV reception, for TVs and stuff, but you did not go up there. I might have occasionally with a teacher for a science project, but this was just the back way of the study hall.
Yeah.
And,
So where was the Coke machine at? It was
right here.
right here, okay.
Never worked.
In the hall.
You can see this thing, how high.
Yeah.
And really, as you look at it now, for a small high school, 200 kids in the high school, this was quite an area.
Yeah.
But it was mostly study hall, which the teachers took turns monitoring. And we would have, after football or basketball occasionally, there might be a dance. Of course, homecoming would be in the gym. We'll walk over here a little bit, but
Sure.
there's not too much of that.
Whatever you want to do.
Not too much of that left.
It's a beautiful building.
It really was, and still is. I mean, we were so lucky as kids because structurally it was new, fairly new. I mean, by the time I was here, it was 25 years old. Pretty well laid out, plenty of classroom space. You know, gosh, we had the best of the science equipment, textbooks, because it was a state-supported school. So, I mean, these were here. This is original.
Okay.
That's original. The doors had to change for safety. See where they used to be different, but
So this doorway here, would this go out, was this built on then, this extra area?
This, you can see the difference in the color block.
Yeah.
This is the gymnasium edition.
Okay.
Probably what, 1950, 51, whenever the gym was built.
Okay.
But this was always just, we used to park our bikes right out here, where all this equipment is, that was gone, not there. And, but the way the building looks here, outside was the same. But this was where we would, would come down here and turn the corner. We used to dress in our football clothes there. This was probably always a closet. This started the locker room experience. And it's now, go ahead.
Okay.
This is, I think, the waiting room for the Kovac.
Okay.
And by now, you've short ceilings. This was 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade boys' locker room. And it was pretty primitive. Pretty primitive. They've done certainly done a lot of work here.
What do you mean by primitive?
Let's see. No, we weren't in the locker room yet. This was where they kept. This was storage for gym equipment, and then we came here. We'd come here, and this is where the towels and our football stuff was kept in the off season. This was like an equipment room.
Okay.
And now, this would have been the locker room.
Okay.
And there would have been lockers here, and lockers there, and lockers along that wall. And that was it for 4 grades of boys. And then the doorway up. And we had to go up to get to the showers. There were no showers down here. But this was the 5th through 8th grade boys' locker room area. This was where we would come in and get a towel or get a clean t-shirt or socks. If we needed pads for our football pants or whatever, all of our equipment was kept here, basketballs and whatnot. And then we'd go right on out the door. Go out here, and there were benches during football, and we would dress. But we practiced down here where the Western Marching Band practices. It's where we practiced football. Of course, we practiced basketball up here in the Kovac. But we played our football games. We walked down to Hanson Field and played our high school games.
Yeah.
Right on Hanson. That was pretty special. I mean.
Yeah, I bet.
So that's just an exit up to Kovac. But this was. There might have been bathrooms right about here. But that was the equipment storage room, and then the locker rooms, which were very cramped, smelly, smelly wieners on boys.
Yeah.
And we come up here, and this would be, this would just be like athletic trainer's room, where if you sit on a bench and get your ankle taped or something like that. All the coaches' offices were in here. And, you can see we were still in kind of the foyer. This doors were here. This was still a foyer where you walked into. These were double doors that went into the gym. And this area was coach. There was like 4 offices that just kept going. But there wasn't an exit door at the time. I'm sure this is just all part of a... Oh gosh, they got an elevator now. But anyway, this was just all open, and it took you into the gym.
Yeah.
Great. Still have a great music program there. At the
Yeah.
Stadium. And then upstairs, we don't have to go up there, but I'm not even sure what's happened. That was the 9 through 12. That was the boys' high school locker room, the shower room for 5th through 12th. That would have been the shower room and the boys' locker room. And then also you would, there was a balcony that ran the whole east side of the second story and the whole west side of the second story of the gym for people to sit for basketball games and music performances. So there were balconies up there, and I think it's, I don't know what it is now, but it's certainly different.
Yeah.
But, so there, as you can see, lots of areas, and let's see, I'm kind of curious. There used to be a back way here that I don't think we could probably, it's probably gone. Please keep off the left. Okay. That's,
Oh, it's like an elevator kind of thing.
yeah, it might be, again, there used to be the industrial arts room.
Open. I can't believe it. Area of refuge. No, this is the area of refuge.
That's where the performers,
Okay.
when they leave the stage, they come off of here, and this was their green room. There must not. There's some hidden areas in this building. The industrial arts room used to be
Closed and locked.
I'm trying to think. I suppose you could go through curiosities, something else. Where we had band, there was a door back behind there that was just another way to get out of the music room. Sure, that was always a closet. Yes, I think that was a back way into the band room to take like timpani and instruments and whatnot out. There were 2 offices right here. 2 offices. And again, here's the steps that went up to, we poked our head in and looked down that hallway where I said our practice rooms were. And because, again, a long time ago, the ceiling was gone, and that wall was not there. This was the gymnasium.
Okay. Yeah, you can see here where they, they just lowered the ceiling like that.
That's, you can see where the original high ceiling would have been.
Yeah.
And that would have been balcony for people to watch the games. But it's the old band room, and our semicircle was always this way, and the director was right up front. And acoustic, again, full of acoustical tile, which would have been full of asbestos. Yeah, I'm telling you, there's now this. I don't know why this area was even existed, but this was what we called the wrestling room. Probably locked. It had mats on the floor. It had some climbing rings, rungs, and some things like that. But it would be a place for, we'd go for PE classes and wrestle and go crazy. But that's, oh my goodness. in. There's
Original.
a stairway.
Oh, wow.
Our industrial arts room is right here. This is where the boys, 7th through 8th grade, gosh, this is where we had industrial arts. Look at these costumes.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we were able to, you can see where the old steps were. It used to be big enough to walk up. But this is a different block.
Yeah, let's close that off.
I suppose that was always a janitor's thing, whatever, but anyway. Okay. A little claustrophobic here. This is definitely different.
So it was a bit more, well, this was a original
But it was
hallway.
a very active hallway.
Yeah.
7th through 12th grade boys, industrial arts right in there. All the power equipment and Mr. Howe, the teacher, forever and ever. I'm not aware of this doorway in this area.
Looks like it was there before, wasn't it?
I think that's a door that was locked that I tried to get in.
Yeah.
I don't think this was even here.
Really?
I think it was constructed. Anyway, this is the wrestling room. You go down anywhere and do sit-ups and push-ups.
Is this tile original here?
Yes, this is all original tile.
Okay.
So this is what we're seeing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that is original. That's old. That's 70 plus years old.
Wow.
Remember storing my saxophone right over here.
Yeah.
And here, 6th grade on, for lessons and practice and whatnot.
Did you have, how many times a week did you have a lesson? Or was
In 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, you probably had a lesson a couple, 3 times a week, and combined practice a couple times a week too. This was just a storage room, I think.
Yeah.
Right in there. But I guess that kind of completes a very long tour of the building.
That was wonderful. I'll probably just turn this off because it's struggling for a while, but I don't know if there's anything else you want to say or...
I can remember the classrooms and my teachers on every floor.
Yeah.
And, I can remember starting to school. There were no poor kids back then, and there were no rich kids. Everybody was pretty much the same. 3 and 4 kid households, 3 to 5. Seems like 2's the average number of children today, and it was probably 4 back then. 1 car, mom didn't work. Black and white TV, 1, which we got when I was like in 1st grade. Either old, like black high-top tennis shoes or cowboy boots, blue jeans, rolled up 3 or 4 inches so you could grow into them. Wouldn't have to buy them new every year. Blue jeans, and like flannel shirts or even Western shirts with cowboy designs. Cowboys were big. Daniel Boone, Davy Crockett, all that stuff. Girls wore dresses. It was, that was the 50s. And then, but I can remember watching, we were lucky because of the University Television Broadcasting and so forth. In 6th grade, spring of 1961, we had a TV in our 6th grade classroom, and we were allowed to watch Alan Shepard be the first American go up in space for 20 minutes. Was all it took. But he put him in a rocket ship, and he went up, and the rocket didn't explode, and the space capsule landed out in the ocean, and it didn't sink, and they got him, and that was, that was big. That was so big, we stopped class to watch it happen.
Yeah.
And we watched, in 7th grade, we kind of watched and monitored when John Glenn went around the Earth. That was a big deal. So I can remember having televisions in the room, because many times our class presentation, teacher lecture, whatever, was filmed live, sent back to a classroom sitting over in Sherman Hall. Instead of having everybody get out, it was done live in the classroom. I can remember having the cameras in there, and the teachers were they were a little bit more jacked up, and, as were the students, to behave. And they definitely had, knew what it was all about, and had a presentation and starting a new section on whatever, and they would pretty much call on students who hopefully would know the answer, or could come up and perform something on the blackboard. But I remember going through that, which was part of the lab school experience. I don't think that happened in the public school here.
Yeah.
But it did here. But, we didn't mind. I mean, we grew up with that, with having student teachers who, for the most part, by far, did an excellent job, and I'm sure went on to be excellent teachers, because back then that's why you came here, to be a teacher. And the social life was different, the times were different, and those students studied and prepared, and they had a great faculty to teach them at the university, and they had a great faculty here to work with them during their student teaching, and we had good teachers. Sometimes you try to play them, play games, check them out and all that kind of stuff. And, they were pretty much knew what they were doing. They were prepared by the time they got to the student teaching. And they would student teach for, in a quarter of 12 weeks, they probably observed for 4 weeks, taught for 4 weeks, and then, or longer, and then sat back and observed the head teacher again, the last part of the quarter. But when I student taught, I had to drive to Roseville because, the lab school was still here, down at Corbin Hall, but I just didn't care to do that, to student teach. But instead of having to travel around, the practice teaching is what it was called. But the education majors, people that were going to be teachers, would actually do their 12-week quarter of student teaching here and spend the entire quarter with the class, with the head teacher, a few weeks of observation, and preparing and getting prepared for what their section was going to be. And then they took over. They were the teacher. And then the head teacher finished out, and they stayed to observe, and they probably got as much out of observing as teaching. But that was almost every year here, was having college students as teachers at some time all year long. So that was the lab school experience.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I hope you get an A. I really hope you get an A.